let me bring my garden in. So I'm going to share with you a long journey I've been on and still am on, working with small-scale farmers in Africa. This shot is from Tanzania, and I work with ladies like these. I'm going to talk about, I don't know if this actually works with laser, but there's an orange thing that baby is holding, which we call a chameleon, which shows those coloured lights, which tell you something about how wet the soil is. And there's another thing down here, which measures nutrients in the ground. And I'm going to tell you very, very briefly how these things work as we go. So why do we call them a small-scale farmer? Well, unfortunately, they only have a small amount of land to farm. It doesn't probably feel very small when you have to dig it like that. But think of the rugby field just down the way. That's, say, 50 metres by 100 metres. I put the poles on there so you can see. That's what those things are. and that's the amount of land you've got. If you didn't have irrigation and you lived in Africa, I brought some white African maize with me. You might get a harvest like that, a cob like that, for every square metre of ground. Okay, that's about 100 grams, and so we're going to grow 500 kilos on our football field, okay? And if you live on maize, you need about 250 kilos a year, so that's 2 of you can feed. So that's not going to work if you've got a family. If you've got irrigation, you're going to do much better. You're going to have another big cob in that square metre. You might be up to 3 tonnes per hectare, or 150 kilograms on your football field. Do you mind if we dig up your football field, Richard? But you know, that's not enough. You could just feed yourself. We've got to grow 6 tonnes at least, and you can. But if you're going to grow 6 tonnes in your square metre, in 600 grams in your square metre, okay, 6 tonnes in your hectare, 3 tonnes on your football field, you're going to have to know how to manage water and nutrients. And we don't know how to do that very well. Life of a small-scale farmer, they don't make much money either. This one's from Malawi. You might make 400, that's US dollars, from your work, and that's how you spend your money. You add that up, there's not a lot left over. So, what are these farmers like? So they're all wearing the same clothes because they're part of our project and they kind of get given the clothes. It's a role I know, it's like a prison farm, but irrigation's a messy business. They are all free, I'm assure you. And they love to sing, and they sing songs, as you can see the lady in the middle there, holding her chameleon. Now, when I visit these farmers, okay, let me tell you this first. Long before, I took this picture this morning in my back garden, because that's a tap timer. You know what that is. You can get it at Bunno's up the road. And millions of people have got them, and there's 2 dials there. One's labelled runtime and the other's interval. Okay, those 2 buttons, you have to twist them. Are you going to irrigate every 3rd day, or 4th, or 5th, or 6th, or every day? And when you've made that decision, how long's the runtime? Now you make that decision. You do, but you don't know how you've made it. You're just guessing, aren't you? In fact, the whole world is guessing, because Bunno's doesn't sell something that tells you what you should put on those dials. Nobody does. Very strange if you have to grow 6 tonnes of maize or 3 tonnes on Richard's football field. So this is a big problem. And when I go to visit the farmers, inevitably they all sit here under the tree waiting for us to arrive, and they always want me to address them. And of course I like to be polite, and I used to address the farmers, but after a while I realised, you know, I don't have anything sensible to say. I don't understand your life, and I think, you know, I've come with something, and you're probably trying to guess what it is. So I said to them, look, I'm not talking to you. Take me to your fields. I want you to tell me what I need to know. And that is the chameleon. It looks like this. I mean, you can see what it looks like, but I haven't got a pointer. So, and it tells you, it's got these sensors that are buried in the ground, like this, on different coloured wires, because they buried at different depths. And if you don't make the wires different colour, you forget which one's which when it's on the ground. And you bury them in the ground, and you connect up your reader, and your reader turns a colour depending on how wet the soil is. Does that make sense? Yeah, I can show you. You know what soil's like? It's like a sponge. So when you wet soil like this, it holds that water. It holds water, okay? I can't even get water out of a syringe, never mind out of the soil. Okay. And then what a plant does is it sucks the water out of the soil. So sucking is a bit like squeezing. So when the soil's wet, it's easy to get the water out, and so you get a bit of water out. But when you've got the first bit out, the light turns green. See, it goes from blue, and then this water is also quite easy to get, but not as easy, but the plants are still happy, and they'll squeeze the water out. But then it goes red, the light, okay? And then it's getting a bit harder, and I'm not going to get my 6 tons anymore, okay? Because I've got to work pretty hard to get the water out. Does that make sense to you? Now, the problem is every soil is different, which makes this a very difficult business. Now, this chap's name, this is Fredson, and in science, in social science, I'm not a social scientist, but I know enough to know that we call that thing, chameleon, a boundary object, because that sits between his world and my world. He's looking at those colours, and he grew that crop, and he knows what decisions he made to get those colours. So you can see the top level's wet, the next level's drier, the next level's drier, and then the bottom one is wet. And he's got a lot to say about that. I'm looking from the other angle at those colours, and I'm a biologist, so I'm saying, well, that plant is, you can see the maize plant with the silking, it's that flowering, what's actually happening biologically to that plant. But our worlds meet at this boundary object. We call this knowledge co-creation, where local experiential knowledge, that's Fredson, meets formal scientific knowledge. I'm not teaching people what to do. I'm building systems that help us to learn together, because Fredson knows a lot of things about Nanzola that I will never know. Now, I hope you were watching my sponge, because you're going to need it now. Okay, so I've got the laser here, but I just don't look. This is called a chameleon pattern. Okay, so if you look at the top pattern where it says no irrigation, you can see 3 rows, can't you, labeled 20, 40, 60. Can you see that? And time. So if you think of back to Fredson, he's got lights at a particular time, but if you wrote those colours down every day and put it onto a spreadsheet, you'd make a pattern. Does that make sense? Because they change, okay? So on the top one, you can see that we started off wet, and then it goes green, and then it goes red, because the plants are sucking the water out. And then you can see the roots going deeper, can't you? So you go until you get to green at the bottom layer on the 1st of April, and then it rains, and it goes blue again. Make sense? Okay, and then of course the rain stops and it goes red. So now we're stuck back in our, with only 1 cob of corn. So if we irrigate, we can stay blue, okay? You agree? And we can get 2 cobs or maybe more. But there's a problem, you see. It's not only hard to get the water right, there's another big problem. If you skipped an irrigation and irrigated every second time, you get a pattern like that. It's a bit drier. Can you see there's a bit more red? And that pattern gives you many more colds. Why is that? I'll put them here. At least I can see them. You can't. Okay. So, this is Abdullah. And Abdullah is a very serious fellow, you can see. And he made a very big, far-reaching discovery. This is Kaweri in southern Tanzania. In his right hand, he has a nitrate test strip, which measures nutrients in the soil, which he's got out of this instrument here. Can you see this thing? Which is also buried in the soil, like this. And when you irrigate, it catches a water sample. And it pops up a float when it's got it. Streamline convergence, if you're into physics. And he takes that drop of water and he measures the nutrients. And then he measures the salts. And we also measure salt by colour as well. You see, the units are so complicated. And this is very important because for these farmers, the only thing they've got in their life that's free is water, and they use a lot of it. But they wash their nutrients out. And this guy started realizing that, and he got everybody to start skipping irrigations, which is how you get that middle pattern. This slide's a bit hard to explain, but I was at a meeting the other day, and a group of farmer delegation wanted to talk. They were on the stage, and that gentleman on the right walked up onto the stage. He's the director of irrigation of Tanzania, and he wanted to show them a pattern, and he wanted to ask these farmers a question. And this is a very exciting thing, because we don't understand water, and we want to build a language that goes right from a farmer who's illiterate all the way to the director, so that they can all see the same information, because there is enormous conflict over water. Okay. Now, how do we get that pattern? Well, a very clever friend of mine has built the next version of these things. And when the farmer goes out, this is a dummy sensor, to measure and say, should I irrigate or not? It takes the readings like before. In this case, it's blue, green, or red. But this time, with the sensors, we've buried a chip so that we can ID that sensor, and the data jumps off your phone into the cloud, and then we can pull them all down. So we create all these patterns from around the world automatically, and then we can talk about them. And we can build a conversation, a learning conversation around water. So this is Zakia. You can see she's got her Chameleon, new version, in her hand. And she's taking her readings. And her story is very familiar. We hear it again and again and again. And it's a story of, even though the soil looked so dry when we came, there's water beneath. They can see by their chameleon, and so they tend to skip irrigations. When they skip irrigations, they save fertilizer. They start to manage their conflict, because people steal, they irrigate at night. And then you go blue, and then that's a bit of a giveaway. The most interesting thing, but we had no idea that conflict was sitting just beneath the surface of all the meetings we had. We were completely unaware of this. Saving time, we were also completely unaware of. These are busy people. In fact, someone asked Zakia, how much time do you save? And she says, I save almost 2 days a week. It takes all day to irrigate your football field. And someone asked her, what do you do? And she said, I visit my child who's at school in the next town. That's what I do. It's my day off. And the other one, I think, was make cake. Because she sells a business, okay. And last is increasing yield and saving water. That's at the bottom of the pile, it always is. very important to us. Her name is Anatalia. She's the first farmer ever to use a chameleon, 2014. We didn't know if it would really work then. We didn't know if it would catch on. And this is from 2 weeks ago, and she gave us an impassioned speech. If you know Africa, you know people can make a speech. And her speech ended with these words: "Not me, the project has opened our minds." And her final words were, "May God increase the work." Scientists don't normally communicate like this. I'm just dictating what she wrote. What she spoke. I can't get away with this in CSIRO. I went home to my hotel that night, and I was both exhilarated by the stories we've heard, but overwhelmed by those stories too. Because I'm exhilarated because things are really working, but overwhelmed because in 2014 we'd reached tens of farmers, in 2017 we'd reached hundreds, but there are so many more. My wife asked me this morning if I prepared my talk. I said yes, the beginning's obvious, the middle's easy, I've done it before, but I don't have an ending. How can I have an ending of the story I'm in the middle of? So let me try this on you. That night was another night for tossing and turning in a hotel bed in Africa. And I thought I would distract myself by looking at my email, which was a big mistake. All the overdue reports. I'd said something in a meeting the week before that had offended someone, and I needed to rebuild the bridge. I had contracts to sign, I had things left undone, and oh yes, the lab had gone wrong back in Canberra. And I was overwhelmed. And then I thought of Anatalia and Stirzaker. They are small, don't forget, small scale, and they are poor. But their lives don't look small and poor to me. They live big lives. My problem was that my mindset's been becoming smaller and poorer as I fight for all the things I want to do.
Agamiliani utenga wanu wa bwino Agamiliani utenga wanu wa bwino Tibida besogoro Osayangana mbali osabwerera mbuyo Tibida besogoro Osayangana mbali osabwerera mbuyo Tibida besogoro
The message is that Chameleon is giving them the good message, the good news, and they are not going to return. They are not going to look sideways, but they are going forward with the message that they are getting from Chameleon to continue managing their irrigation in the irrigation schemes. That's the message that it's in the song. Thank you very much.